Hey Todd.
What's up, Chris?
I got a thing. I got a thing I want to talk about.
Let's hear it. I'm going to talk about it
Okay.
too.
Okay. So this year, 2026 is America's 250, right? And it is for many people an expression of patriotism, or they're giving their best expression of patriotism in celebration of the 250th. And since the 4th of July just passed, which was the actual birthday, you've seen a lot of it. I think it'll continue through the year. And there's something else going on this year, which I also think should be an immense expression of patriotism, but it isn't for everybody. And I'm curious about exploring it. And that's the World Cup. So, quick story. I'm a big soccer fan. I'm a big supporter of the U.S. men's national team. I love the World Cup. I'm watching all the games. Unfortunately, our American team did not make it past the round of 16, but they put up a decent fight in most of their games. But this isn't about the sports, right? This isn't about analyzing which players were on the pitch and how they performed and who scored what goals. That's not what this is about. I have this fundamental belief that one of the most patriotic things you can do, I might make the argument for the most patriotic thing you can do, is support the U.S. men's national team. And I will get into specifically why, and specifically why it's the men's team, and specifically why it's soccer as we discuss this. But I wanted to start with something else, which is I got on a text thread with my high school buddies, and I said, "Hey, let's get some chatter going about one of the games back in the group stage." And they all just pushed back. They all love football and baseball and basketball, and they all pushed back like, "No, man, no, we're not interested." And one of them wrote, "Soccer's not an American sport." And I said, "Exactly. Soccer's not an American sport. It is potentially the only truly global sport. And we, America, have a team in the largest competition. So it's incredibly patriotic. Or if you are a patriot, you should at least be tracking, know what's going on. You don't have to even like soccer. Just care that we're participating in this global spectacle." Now, I contrast that against America's 250th, and I'm interested to see what you think about different expressions of patriotism.
Huh. So it's interesting. I was captivated by FIFA in a way that I would normally be captivated. I think the Olympics is that not also a patriotic expression, cheering for the US Olympic team?
Yes, this is certainly not mutually exclusive. It doesn't
Okay.
eliminate the Olympics being patriotic. However,
Yeah,
I would argue that this is a much bigger global spectacle than any Olympiad ever has been.
I agree. And I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention to FIFA in years prior, but this year felt like electric. It felt ubiquitous. Um, Look, Chris, I have a bias because I was the school mascot. So when it
Mm.
comes to sports and athletics, I just want everyone happy, everyone cheering, um, and that's hardwired in me. But no, I is it patriotic cheer? Yeah, I think it's patriotic, and I think it's what. Here's part of the problem with what so many people are hesitant to sort of cheer for Team America because they think it's a proxy for cheering for the current president of the United States, or they think it's a proxy for cheering for actions that the United States has taken that they don't agree with. Um, and so you're right. There is this kind of like muted and like so many things in our country, it just becomes this kind of like polarized divide of like whether or not you are cheering for Team USA. So yeah, there are not a lot of places, and FIFA is one. And it's interesting. It's like I had this kind of reflection that like a little bit of sadness as the US team lost, which was we have to like wait 4 years to have
I
this
know.
level of enthusiasm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or correct me on that. It's four
Yeah. It's
years. I
every
mean,
four. It's every 4 years.
and
Right.
so that to me was like this real tragedy. Like, God, it's been so electric. People are so engaged. It's so fun seeing the global teams. It's so fun cheering for underdogs. It's so fun. It's winning. It's winning. Fun. It's fun to win, but it's fun to just participate, right? And I think I was like, God, this needs to happen more often. And it's at least a reminder that we as Americans are like wanting to sort of be on a same team. Um, and FIFA like gave us a unique expression of that. So yeah, it's like, how do we recreate those conditions and other things? It's not
I
politics.
think no, it's not. The politics actually has a negative effect on it. I think it's super. I think that you could say, and I don't have data to prove this, that people who enjoy soccer are more likely, but not exclusively, more likely to maybe lean politically left. For some reason, it feels like that, and I actually couldn't tell you why. Maybe it's because it's slightly unconventional, and a lot of times people that defy convention are the part of a progressive movement, not part of a conservative movement. That's just sort of the definition of defying convention, is not being conservative, right? So it is our fourth or fifth most popular sport in this country, but growing. So I think that you see that. And so then you have that combination, right? So like those people who love soccer, they might not want to, sorry, the people who are progressive might not want to cheer for soccer because they're cheering for the US. And does that mean you're supporting an administration that they don't support? And then meanwhile, you have the conservatives who support the administration who may not just enjoy soccer as a sport, and they're like, I'm not cheering for that stuff. That's like my high school friends who are like, it's not an American sport. And I reminded them that if we did the World Cup of American football, that it wouldn't be very interesting because the USA would just win, and that's its own thing. So this is the only interesting thing. You have to add to the fact that this is happening in our country, right? Which is not obviously, not lost on the fact that it's our 250th when they made the bid and they said, hey, we can host this and host it with our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. But I think that for me, the most compelling argument is that this World Cup is, by all definitions, I think, and I can't think of a reason I'm wrong here. So, but check me on it. This World Cup is the largest spectacle in the history of humanity, right? Like 5 or 6 billion people will watch it.
Yeah.
Now, and remember, by the way, China and India aren't even in the World Cup. A lot of them are going to watch from those countries, but those teams aren't even competing, and that's a couple billion people right there. That's a quarter of the earth or something right there. But still, like everybody will watch, and 180 or 190 something countries vied to qualify. 48 qualified. Here we are. It is that the world does not agree on many things. The world doesn't experience many things together, like safe pandemics, right? And so this idea that we have this tournament, this festival, this competition that happens for about a month or so, and the whole world turns their eyes on it. To me, if you're a human, and this is the largest spectacle in the history of humanity, and you're living through it, participate somehow. And so how would most Americans participate? You don't have to pay $1,000 to go to a game. You don't even have to know the rules of soccer, but you got to know that you got a team. You got the best of the best from your country. The same way you root for us when we put on our uniforms and go to combat, root for us when we put on our uniforms and send the best of the best into a sporting competition. And so therefore, I think, and I'll say this boldly, the greatest manner of expressing patriotism is supporting the U.S. men's national soccer team. And by the way, just a caveat, asterisk, men's, not women's, not because I don't support the women, not because I don't think everyone watches women's sports, and I love women's sports too, but because it is not the global spectacle. When the Women's World Cup comes around, it's just not my fault, not your fault. It's not the global spectacle that the Men's World Cup is, just period, right? So I'm just living in the world we live in. But that is the greatest expression of U.S. patriotism. I think the second most might be, well, I'm biased, right? National parks. Supporting and going to national parks because it's such a uniquely American thing that we started. Then the third is military service. And then the fourth is, voting. And the fifth is, well, I don't know what the fifth is, civic participation, paying taxes. Yeah. And I literally rank them like that. And I think a lot of people would come up and tell me, no, the most important expression of patriotism is having the biggest flag from your pickup truck, or having the most fireworks, or eating the most hot dogs, or like, we can go on, but like those things are all external chest beating shows of affection, but they actually aren't. They're self-indulgent, right? And I think what the World Cup proves to us right now in our own country is that it is far from self-indulgent, right? It is community building and community based, and it unites the world in a way nothing else does, at least since COVID.
Yeah.
but it unites the world in a positive way more than anything else ever has. And here we are. This is, I think, the 25th World Cup. The 100th anniversary of the World Cup is in 4 years. So that's how long it's been going on. So we have a century of this spectacle.
I you're compelling me here. You're convincing me.
And
I
you don't even have to know what
But I'm
offsides means to do this. You just
no
don't
no
even
no
have to
yeah
know.
no. I was like caught up in it, and I'm like not a soccer fan, and and watching my son ask about the teams and the colors, and then the adults like, who's PAR? Oh, that's Paraguay. Where's Paraguay? Like people going to the maps and like looking and learning about the history of the country is one of the most inspiring stories for me was the Haitian team, where I don't know the exact backstory. I don't want to get it wrong, but like a coach, Haitian coach, assembled a global team. They didn't practice in Haiti because it's not safe to practice in Haiti, but they represented Haiti from sort of a global cast of characters. And so I think those anecdotes remind us of our shared humanity. It's interesting though, because I want to give two counterpoints. Like one is like COVID, I thought would have broken through a lot of the noise and reminded us that we are in fact living on this like same shared planet, like in a sort of like a post geopolitical context. And it did not seem to do that. I also thought it would like reduce the divisions in this country between like red and blue. It did not do that. I thought it would do a lot of things it did not do. And I'll just leave it at that, which was surprising to me because I actually thought I was looking for the upside of a global pandemic, and I was like, this might remind people that like we're in this boat together, right? And like,
that's reminding people. That's reminding people of something negative that you can turn into a positive, right? Versus just saying like, hey, here's this thing that we've created that is abundantly positive, albeit there's plenty of negative aspects to FIFA and to soccer as well. There's corruption and there's gambling and all that, but putting that aside, it is primarily meant to be a positive thing, not
it's meant to be a positive
pandemic that we try to put a spin on.
Right. And the other reality of our country is like we oftentimes, I feel like we're like a petulant child. We're like, we get spoiled, we enter into petty fights. I think our country is like full of like petty fights right now, and then it takes like a kick, like a punch in the face, whether it's like a world war or a civil war, or I would have inserted global pandemic, although that didn't happen. In my view, it sort of like didn't happen. For us to sort of like be reminded of our abundance and like to hold dear the things that are in fact sacred and dear about this country. And so I do like the question for me always becomes like, how do you get this country to sort of see itself as one body, absent a world war, which is like not helpful, not productive. No one wants that. But like, can we sort of get there without that cataclysmic event? You're making the argument like FIFA can be that every 4 years, which I'm compelled by. I think the counterpoint I might make though is, if you ask me like what's the greatest expression of patriotism, I think it shows up quietly. I don't think it's like decorated golf carts. I don't think it's like, I mean, I think it can be. I don't want to say it's not those things, but I think it's like
nothing wrong with those things. I mean, let's just get out.
Along with those things,
we're ranking things, but like we're not saying that it's like a yes and a no. You get to express patriotism however you want, but there are some, and my yeses lean towards unity, right, and my no's lean towards a personal, individual expression. So I'm these United States, right? So I'm an expression that brings community and unity. That's what I'm going to err towards the side of.
Yeah. I'm gonna get like, I mean, my nerdy self says like my great dream for the 50th would have been like people actually reread the Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, like reground in these documents, which I know is not going to happen. But I'm like, what's exceptional about the United States is that we pledge loyalty to like an operating agreement, like a piece of paper with a set of rules, and that was the departure from how countries and nation states have been constructed before, either as like religious theocracies or as monarchies, right, or as something in between, aristocracies. And so this notion of sort of like a magical set of documents, like I wanted to bring some of the magic back. And actually I was at the National Constitution Center 2 weeks ago, and the presentation is like magical, and you realize like the founding, the contradictions, which they like honor. It's like, this isn't about like we got it right, this is about like an aspiration and arc towards more perfect, like we're going to set aside, like put language on paper that we know we live short of, but like sets an aspiration for what this country can be. It's an ever, it's going to be a continuing project. Like I want that magic sort of like enlivened across communities. And so I don't know. To me, there's something about something hyper local. Go to like a local memorial, read the names of like local people in your community that died in World War II, like hyper localize this, like, and then some national unity, which is like in the form of FIFA and fireworks and other things. I mean, FIFA top of the list, but um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want more out of this year. Like, I hope it doesn't. I hope the conversation doesn't stop because the 4th of July is
Mm-hmm.
over. That's a little bit of a fear of mine as well. Or I hope we won't have to wait 4 years for like the next World Cup.
We're going to go straight into election season, and I think anything becomes polarized and politicized. So, as much as I agree with your hope, I don't know if that's going to be true. I think it's interesting that you make it. We're spanning global to local, right? And we're saying, what is patriotism? And the answer is, what is the thing that spans global to local, right? And again, I'll make the argument it's the World Cup, right? I'll make the argument that it is this idea that like, hey, this is 4 or 5 billion people are going to watch this, but I watched it with my 3 buddies at a bar. You know what I mean? And that's and I watched it with my kids and I watched it with my partner. And so I think that the idea that that it does bring small communities together to enjoy, whether it's the people who love America, whether it's people who love soccer, whether it's people who are just like, what is this spectacle? That actually is fun to bring together too. I love sitting there and like knowing all the rules and knowing soccer and having somebody being like, oh wait, why did they do that? And I can explain it real quick. And they're like, oh cool. And I remember one time another person that the game watch I was at was like, I heard them as an aside, like, look, if that person doesn't know about soccer, why are they even here? And my immediate response is like, because they're here, because they're watching, because like they don't know about, they're not here for the soccer, they're here for the spectacle, they're here for the country, they're here for the community. And so I think that that's super important. So I have this vision, not of the 250th, but if in conjunction with the 250th, what if now that we know the outcome of the U.S. men's team, they made it to the round of, they made it to the round of 16, and that's it. Same as they made 4 years ago, one step short of our, as far as we've ever made it. What if they had gone to the finals? Well, we're not even going to say win the whole thing, but what if they'd made it through, what now looks like some really impressive teams in Spain, France, Argentina, England, those folks, they've made it to the finals. And we're all gathering around our televisions. I think it's like a 3 p.m. Eastern start on a Monday. We're all gathered on our televisions. Everyone's off work watching that.
Yeah.
Would that not be the thing that you would hope for out of a negative experience like COVID, but around a wholly positive experience? Like, what would that have been like, win or lose, right? What would it have been to bring people together like that?
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. It's like, I mean, that's like it. It's like we live in a fractured media environment, right? And so there's nothing that breaks through the noise that like gets all of us to sort of like hear and watch the same thing. And so, yeah, it would have been great. And this is partly where, I don't know, maybe new models will emerge that sort of like recapture the global attention. Like we're in this sort of reinventing of the media environment. So like, the question for me is like, how do we get Americans of all stripes to sort of like gather and participate in a similar spectacle, the same spectacle? Yeah, that's magic. I don't know how we recreate it, but we need to. And, elections are not it. They're something that we all pay attention to, but they're sort of the very things that seem to divide us more than they do sort of like unite us, which is an unfortunate feature of today's politics, but that's what we're trying to change as well. So I remain optimistic, my friend. National parks are another one. Go to a national park, do something locally.
They're always going to be there, by the way. This is not every 4 years. They're constantly there. They're America's land, these public lands. You own them. A whole nother conversation for another day. We'll definitely get into that. But look, I think here's the thing. In 1994, the United States hosted a World Cup. And what that spawned was, amongst other things, the MLS, right? We have Major League Soccer. We have a professional, like top tier soccer league. It doesn't necessarily compete with those in Europe yet, but it is a great national league. And so we've had that for 30 something years. And what will this one spawn, right? It's not going to be a league, I don't think, but it's going to be a probably accelerated interest in the sport, in the team, And so whether you're a soccer fanatic that's already, trying to figure out if, Caden Sullivan is going to be able to, come up through Man City. He's a 16-year-old prodigy, by the way, who plays for Philadelphia Union in the MLS. He'll go to Man City, and in 2 years, and in 4 years, he'll be 20. And is he going to be on the field passing to Christian Pulisic to, take us to the quarterfinals, the semifinals in Spain and Morocco in 4 years? I don't know. You could be that guy, or you could be the person that shuts it down now, doesn't watch a single kick of soccer until the summer of 2030, when you turn it back on and see who the U.S. is playing in their first game in Madrid or something like that. And both are fine and both are great. But what between now and then, what happens? How do we, as Americans, express our patriotism in between World Cups? And the answer is however you want, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that if you can find something that is important on a big stage, that has a stake in it for you and can bring together people around a shared experience, and a shared nation, I think we did a great job celebrating America's 250 with a World Cup and supporting our U.S. men's national team. That's what I think.
The World Cup might have been the pinnacle of America's 250th, actually, in a lot of respects. That was sort of the convening event for a lot. It's interesting that they were at the same time.
So last note is that go back to my friend who said soccer's not an American sport. But I will tell you that on July 4th, 2026, on Independence Mall in Philadelphia, where it all happened 250 years ago, what was happening? Fox was doing their live broadcast for the game that was to be played later in Philadelphia that day. And it unfortunately wasn't a U.S. game, but it was soccer. Soccer was happening at the exact spot the Declaration was signed 250 years to the day. So
it's poignant.
Here we go. Let's join the rest of the world. Let's root on our boys, and in the meantime, our women as well, and all the other sports too. If you want to root for the World Baseball Classic, if you want to watch the Olympics, we got Olympics coming here in 2 years as well too. So do all of it. But I think that these shared experiences are crucially important for our country.
I think they're crucially important. I want to plant a seed for a future conversation, which is whatever happened to the World Columbian Exposition. We'll come back to that.
Oh, man. As two guys born and raised in Illinois, do we get to talk about the Great White City?
Yeah.
And the World's Fair in Chicago, the two World's Fairs in Chicago.
Could there be a future
let's do that.
along those lines?
We'll get into that too. What happened to the World's Fair?
Next conversation.
All right. Later.
See you, buddy.